just in concluding, we've talked about APP and credit reporting. They fit together, the first half and the second half of the legislation essentially, but there is a crossover. The APPs are about personal information, really broad, yes.
Can you go to the previous slide? When you look at this slide, is APP, what on the left from my end, and the credit. What goes in the middle?
Grey. Lots of grey. Personal information is what we're talking about with the APPs. And with the credit reporting, we're talking about credit information. What's in the middle, when you go through the credit reporting sections, it says if you tick this box, APP 4 doesn't apply. If you tick this box, APP 5 doesn't apply, or it applies to a limited extent. So we've got a little tightrope we need to walk in how we comply. Yes?
Having said that, do you people have a checklist? What should be on the personal information and all the reporting? Because when we do this signed privacy statement for individual, we should be knowing, and the person who signed should be knowing what is to be disclosed and what is not to be disclosed. It can be a fiery situation, you know.
Yes, well, look, the way that we've gone about finding a solution for our clients on this is to have a checklist as part of the overall process, yes, because we've got to tick the boxes. So we've got 13 APPs. They deal with the personal information side of things. So we've got, I'm not going to run through them all again, but we've got how we manage the information openly and transparently, how we collect it, how we notify someone that we've got the information, how we use it, what we do with direct marketing, cross-border, government identifiers, integrity, access and correction. Then we've got our credit reporting side of things, which is dealing with credit information and largely that consumer style information. So what do we think about here? The collection of credit information, the use of credit information and the disclosure of the credit information. That's dealt with under the second part, under that credit reporting section. So if we're going to collect credit information, if it's commercial credit related purposes, we need the express consent. And if it's guarantee purposes, we need the express consent in writing. We've talked about our permitted uses, which is assessing essentially applications and collecting debts. And we need to obtain evidence before we disclose credit information that the person we're giving it to is entitled to it. Otherwise, we're breaching the code. And there are some serious consequences. The Commissioner's got some teeth around this stuff. So what do we need to do to comply? We need to understand what our obligations are under the APPs and the credit reporting provisions and the code. We've got to make sure our staff understand those things. We've got to have these practices and procedures that are developed. We need a privacy policy. We need a credit reporting policy if we're going to collect this credit information. We need written consent for individuals if we're going to collect, use or disclose credit info. And we need some template notices to comply with the Act, and if we're dealing with overseas recipients, either consent or we need to have a process to explain the obligations. The way that we've considered the most effective way to do this and least painful has been essentially having a package that covers over that privacy policy, the credit reporting policy, the privacy statement, the privacy and credit reporting, a handbook, so that it's boiled down in some simple terms that businesses can apply in a practical world, an implementation checklist, a credit reporting implementation checklist as well, and then the suite of prescribed notices, a briefing to overseas recipients, and then obviously ongoing advice and support. So when we turned our mind to how do we deal with this thing, this is what we came up with as we thought, well, the least painful way to tick the boxes. So in conclusion, thanks for your time this morning. We are used to, as trade creditors, getting a bit of a rough run. We've talked about, it's not just enough that people aren't paying us or they're going broke. The government keeps changing the goalposts, and now that we've been through PPSA, we've now got to go and deal with privacy. Awesome. So I hope that this morning we've been able to cut through some of the confusion around this and given an overview about how it applies in your businesses. And before I hand over to Terry, if we could just remind you guys about the feedback form. If you could take 20 or 30 seconds, we'd really appreciate it.